Leafs fade.
No, I haven't had Stan. I was cheering.
Oh, we're on. Oh, I thought you were telling me you were delighted to see the Maple Leafs fade. The clerk waves. When I said, so who's delighted to see the Maple Leafs fade? The clerk is waving. I'm thinking her, but no, it's not her. We're on, are we? Well, anybody listening is getting a very interesting conversation. I, too, sent out a tweet, by the way, Paula, saying, go Leafs, go. But, and I was shocked. I was shocked when it was over. I got to say, it was. Yeah. Oh, no, couldn't. All right, let's do it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We are going to, first of all, accept the agenda that is in front of you. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Baldy, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. That would be Councillor Aker. I'm so bald myself, it's so cute to be able to say that to him, right? With his new cut, his new do. Moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Are there any other additions to the agenda as it has been presented? Any at all? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? The first item then would be the minutes and the action report for the public meeting of April 30th. Moved by Councillor Stoyles, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the minutes be accepted as presented. Are there any errors or omissions to be addressed before we call the motion? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Council, the next item on the agenda is the proclamations and presentations. We have two of them today. I'm going to...
Did you call off any information from the minutes? Any business?
Oh, did you want to do that? Sorry, I missed that. I'm moving on. I'm moving fast today.
I have an item.
You have an item? Go right ahead. Business arising from the minutes of April 30th. Let's go there. Councillor Stoyles.
Number 300. I wanted to speak on the municipal symposium that was held in Gander this past weekend. I want to say that it was a huge success. It's the biggest symposium that M&L has ever held, and of course they had representatives from all across the province, and they announced a number of initiatives. The emergency 911 apparently is going to go all across the province in the next
2 years. Yep.
And within the next 2 years for sure, but next year is going to be official that it's going to start, and that was certainly a highlight of the weekend. And of course they had a number of other speakers and that on the go as well. Crown Lands was a big topic out there the weekend. I end up sitting in another session because I was chairing the session with Mary Bishop, so I couldn't sit in on the Crown Lands, but afterwards, from sitting around talking to a number of people, apparently Crown Lands was a big issue on the table. And also waste management. Of course, they announced Councillor Grant being the chair of the Avalon Waste Management, and they talked about now they're going to be looking at charging all cabin owners. It doesn't matter if you have a resident. One of the things that was the buzzword out there, that they've started charging anybody that has a cabin owner, they pay the $180 along with, and that's going to be in the works coming up. Apparently they've already started with 2 different districts, or whatever you would call them, cabin areas, and they're looking at doing that across the province. So it was a lot of information. M&L certainly has lots of information if anybody else is looking for any additional information on anything, but I guess the high points of the weekend was Crown Lands, waste management, and again the 911 across the province.
The issue of waste management is going to prove itself to be a real problem. Cabin owners, for example, a cabin owner who owns a summer cottage in Deer Park and who lives in Mount Pearl goes to Deer Park for the weekend, brings home their garbage. Why are they paying an additional $180? That's going to be their charge, when in their taxes in the city of Mount Pearl, they pay to have their garbage removed now. That's going to be one of the arguments being put forward by cabin owners against the Eastern District, right? I'm not sure that you can.
I think the way they're looking at it,
I'm not sure that you can.
I think the way they started to look at it, Your Worship, and the way it was talked about around the water coolers is what I'm going to say, because more so than because it was never a debate. There was not a debate out there talking about this. This was more of after and what they were talking about. But that was the concept of what they're planning on doing. But what they were saying, if you can afford a cabin, you can afford to have your garbage picked up in your cabin area, is what they're saying. And in each area, like I'm a cabin owner, and I have my cabin up Sullivan Shore. And what they're saying to us is you're going to have a bin at the end of, our case, Horse Chops Road, and everybody, there's a number of people that live there year round now. I say it's 15 people living on the road now that used to be cabin country. Nobody lived up there 20 years ago, but now it's for sure, I'm going to say 20, it might even be more than 20 up there now. But now, and how do they catch those people? And they bring their garbage down to their friend's house or whatever. So what they're saying is, if you can afford a cabin, you can afford to pay your $180.
Councillor Aker.
I'm quite familiar with the issue. I feel that, as many others may have, several calls. Sitting on the board of, I think it's called the Eastern Regional Services Board, but it's primarily about waste. As part of the province's waste management strategy and closing down all the dumps, the goal was not only to treat our environment friendlier by closing down the dumps, getting all the garbage to Robin Hood Bay, but was to limit the opportunities for people to be dumping their garbage out. I don't believe for a minute that Deer Park residents or Ocean Pond or Three Island Pond or Hodgewater Line ever contributed to that problem. But the issue with Deer Park is they are set up as an LSD, so therefore they are subject to the Municipalities Act in a limited way. So if I look at all the communities going down Salmon-Ear Line, one of them is called Deer Park for technical reasons. And the reason it was set up was so that the cabin owners could have their roads maintained, and they needed to have the legal bite, in other words, to take people who wouldn't pay for the maintenance of the roads. They need to have the legal authority to take them to court. And that's the only reason they were created in LSD. But now, because they're a community, garbage collection is being rolled out. But I don't for a minute believe that anybody who's a part-time resident up there did not already take their garbage back to Paradise, Mount Pearl, St. John's, or CBS, and ultimately, and we've discussed this already in committee, ultimately it ended up down in Robin Hood Bay anyway. But making it a little bit more complicated, like everything is, there are approximately 40 to 50 residents who live in Deer Park who are permanent. And I've challenged some of the members of the Deer Park LSD who, they're dealing with their constituents. They don't want to pay the fee. Some feel it's a tax grab. Others feel it's not required. But I've challenged them to go find out from those residents who permanently live there, what are they doing with their garbage? Because the dump at St. Catharines is now closed. There is no dump in the area. Are they driving all the way to Robin Hood Bay? So to me, this is the tip of the iceberg. Wait till we start, Eastern Regional Services Board starts rolling this out in other parts. I'll make one final comment. When we look at what they're doing in central Newfoundland with the waste disposal site out there, they're not dealing with the cabin owners in exactly the same way. And I would advocate on all levels that at least it be consistent. If there's a dump out in central Newfoundland, the cabin owners out there would get the same treatment as the cabin owners in here.
How are they doing it differently?
I think they have a card system whereby if they take it to the dump themselves, the cabin owners, they get charged a certain drop-off rate. In other words, they're not taking the garbage collection to the cabin owners, they're allowing the cabin owners to take the garbage to the dump. I'm not sure how effective that is. And you got to remember too, in the Avalon Peninsula, the density rate for cabins, right, is a lot higher, I think, than in the rest of Newfoundland and Labrador.
No question.
But clearly the Deer Park LSD people, and they've said, well, we don't want it. And Municipal Affairs is kind of commenting, well, you're an LSD. You can either get Eastern Waste to do it, or you can do it yourself. And if you decide to do it yourself, no wink and a nod, you have to do it. You can't just say we're going to do it, and let's just pretend, and then say we're not going to do it. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's going to cost them something because they are, and this is the primary reason, because they are an LSD. But this issue is going to come up more and more, not just this year, next year, when they start moving out to all the unincorporated cabin areas. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it.
Oh, no question. It's going to be pretty interesting
Pretty interesting.
as it goes along. Any other comment on it? Councillor Tessier?
Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I mean, I have a place outside of town as well. It's not in cabin country. And I have yet to put a bag of garbage outside the door to be picked up, but I still have to pay for the collection fees.
Sure.
So I think it's just part and parcel. I mean, if you have a place, if you accumulate garbage, it's going somewhere. And if there's an ability to put it out, make it more convenient, because yes, most people in Cabin Country are probably there for the weekend, but there is going to come a point in time throughout the course of the year when you're going to be there for a week or 2 weeks, and your garbage is going to accumulate. So when you choose to do that is entirely up to yourself. But I know, I mean, from my perspective, very fairly paid the bill, have yet to put out a bag of garbage because I'm not there when the garbage collection happens. I don't want to leave the garbage there. That is another issue that is going to creep up. I don't want to leave it there to attract whatever it may attract for any period of time while I'm not there.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just kind of weird.
It's an interesting discussion. Councillor Aker, you're looking so sadly at me. Go ahead.
No, that's a very good point that Councillor Tessier brings up. And one little comment. I believe from discussions in committee, I don't think our council is all concerned if I have a cabin or a house around the bay and I'm bringing my garbage back and putting it in through the Mount Pearl collection system. Yes, it's adding a slight bit of tonnage to what the city pays, but I think that's a small price for the city to pay to ensure that garbage ends up at Robin Hood Bay. That's all I wanted to say.
I would think a cabin owner would be able to argue that if I didn't have a cabin, I'd be generating the garbage at home anyway. So the issue of whether it's generated at my civic address inside this community or generated at my summer cottage, it's the same garbage and you're getting it and I've already paid you for it. And that's where the issue, right? This is very much a charge of what you're going to get from cabin owners, I think, is that this is double dipping. That's where they're going to say you're actually taxing us. And your desire as an agency to get at those liviers that are there is a punishment for the 300 cabin owners who are paying elsewhere. That's going to be the challenge. I don't disagree with Councillor Tessier's point of view. I'm just saying that's going to get uglier before it gets better. And we as the municipality that charges for garbage right now, we're the guys going to end up wearing that, and we weren't the ones who created it. That's all I'm saying. It's going to be interesting. I'm rather surprised that it actually came up at the regional meeting. Don't be surprised if we see some kind of weird resolutions or something.
It was more of a water cooler talk afterwards, and that it was a big buzzword out there, more so after the thing. People were asking questions.
And I guess the LSD has
sessions.
the LSD has the authority to go out and get their own contract, right? All right, moving on. Any other items coming up for business arising? Items from business arising. Hearing none. We have no correspondence to report. We will go to our first committee report, which is Public Works. And I guess, Councillor Tessier, in the absence of Councillor Walsh, we're going to call on you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. One of these days I'm going to remember to bring my glasses to public council meetings so I don't have to stretch this thing beyond all recognition. Household hazardous waste, we called tenders for the provision of household hazardous waste day. We received one bid. It was from New Malta. They were the lowest qualified bidder at $10,565.50. We are scheduling this day, this household hazardous waste day, for June the 8th. Of course, the depot will be the household hazardous waste drop-off location. Just to give people an idea of what kind of things you can bring to Household Hazardous Waste Day: motor oils, solvents, propane tanks, glues, paints, batteries, prescription medication, gas, energy-saving bulbs, things like that that should not and really is prohibited from going into your regular garbage, is what the purpose of Household Hazardous Waste Day is. It's to make sure that these garbages are captured properly, safely, and disposed of appropriately as well. What you don't need to bring, or what you cannot bring, are empty paint cans. Empty paint cans can actually go in your regular garbage, regular curbside garbage, of course. Explosive, ammunitions, fireworks. You got leftover fireworks from New Year's and you think that they're no good anymore, they cannot come over to Household Hazardous Waste Day. But if anybody ever wants a full breakdown, a comprehensive breakdown of what they can and cannot bring to Household Hazardous Waste Day, it is online. We do have it in this lovely booklet as well that I'm sure people would be able to avail of. And if they don't have access to the internet, they can certainly give our depot a call, and we'd be happy to and let them know as well.
What they can or cannot bring.
What do we do with fireworks?
I don't know. What would we do? When I read that, I thought the same thing.
Get rid of our fireworks.
Set them off. Set them off?
I would say right now they probably actually go to your landfill.
Probably. You certainly, but you also wouldn't want them in household hazardous waste, I guess, for fear of combustibility.
Yeah, but they separate them. Everything that goes.
Okay, so we're curious. Mr. Randall's going to find out for us.
He's gonna find out.
In the meantime, we have a motion. It is moved.
Well, it's not a motion, it's just.
It's not a
Oh,
motion.
actually, no, that's a lie, that's a lie. It is a
Well, it's
motion.
recommended that a
You're right.
tender be awarded,
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I'm assuming it is a motion.
And I do so move.
Same as last year.
And it is moved, seconded by Councillor Aker, that the tender for Household Hazardous Waste Day be awarded to Nowalta Limited for $10,565.50. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
We have our bulk garbage collection happening now in the city. We all drive by different areas and we can tell who's cleaning out their sheds and their basements and who isn't. It started in April. We want to highlight some guidelines for residents because we do recycle all metals and, of course, other forms of bulk garbage. Metals have to be kept separate from regular household or from regular bulk garbage because it's collected separately. You may see your bulk garbage picked up, but you might see a hot water tank or a dishwasher or something like that left for a separate pickup. It will be picked up. But we do need to highlight some of our regulations when it comes to bulk garbage because we have had some people not adhering to them. Loose materials have to be bundled, boxed, or bagged. The mayor's buying supper.
Apparently so.
Loose items have to be bundled, boxed, or bagged. They can't exceed 50 pounds. There's two reasons for this. We can't have loose items blowing all over the place in neighborhoods when they're put out. It's also very labor intensive and very dangerous for our operators. They're doing this manually. If things are piled up on top of each other, a lot of small things, they don't know what's sharp, what has a nail sticking out of it, what is contaminated in any way, shape, or form. So it does have to be bundled, boxed, or bagged. And the 50-pound weight restriction, of course, is because these are being manually picked up. These are not being picked up by our cart tipper. They're being manually picked up and put into trucks. Trees have to be bundled and should not exceed 4 feet in length, again, because for size reasons, you got to be able to put them in the vehicle properly and safely. So 4 feet long is our restriction on that. Propane tanks have to be completely emptied. The valve has to be removed to show that it is indeed completely empty before you put it out for bulk garbage. Renovation material, construction material, we don't take that. If you have a renovation happening in your home, you have to be responsible for taking or having the materials taken away. We don't take those things, gyprocks, doors, windows, fencing, concrete. We don't take that. So some of those things are being placed out and unfortunately are blowing around and creating a mess and a hazard for people. So we have to make very certain that people are aware that we don't do that. So oil products, diesel fuels, all the things that we talked about, household hazardous waste, also don't go in bulk garbage collection. They go to our household hazardous waste collection on June the 8th. So, of course, anybody has any other questions about this, they are certainly welcome to contact the Public Works Department. Again, we'd be happy to provide clarification if they are not sure. And also just a reminder as well, basketball nets, hockey nets, if you got them, and it's bulk garbage day and you want to keep them, you need to take them away from your bulk garbage collection area just to keep them safe and make sure that you'll have them the very next day. And that is it, Your Worship. Oh, yes.
Thank you. That concludes Public Works. We're going to Community Services. So we're going to keep you up on your feet there, Councillor Tessier.
Dalton's, I hardly got a chance to have drink water. The first item, Your Worship, is Campion News. We are extending congratulations to the gymnasts and the coaches. They participated in the 2013 Atlantic Gymnastics Championships in Sydney, Nova Scotia at the end of April. It's always nice to go on a road trip and compete and display your hard work and talents. They had a great competition with many first to eighth place finishes and special awards were presented. We want to extend thanks to the athletes and the coaches for all their hard work and their dedication to Campion Gymnastics. Second item, Your Worship, along with good news, Danielle Kellaway. His name is probably it's of no surprise to anybody in council chambers. His mom is Carol Ann Kellaway. She's a fabulous volunteer in the city, and Dad is Ian, and they're just wonderful people and volunteers in the city of Mount Pearl. But Daniel himself, we want to congratulate him. He received a scholarship in the amount of $500 from Sport Newfoundland and Labrador during their 22nd annual scholarship reception, and that is for his work in the area of track and field. So we want to extend congratulations to Daniel on this accomplishment. We were all very proud. And it made the social media rounds. I saw it when it happened, and it was shared by a lot of people. Everybody's very, very proud of him. Mount Pearl Youth Week is May 12th to the 18th. Lots of activities happening this week. There's a Quidditch and softball, or Quidditch and dodgeball event happening at the Reed Center. Ruckus is at the Glacier. A free skate and swim. Youth debate that happened here last night in council chambers, and I've got to say, we council members that were here, I think we found it very enjoyable. There wasn't a dull moment, as they say, with this debate last night. And we've got some young people. The grade 9s, I think, particularly were impressive because this was their first attempted debate, and they did such a great job. They definitely held their own. They could have very easily been part of the entire competition, without a doubt. So they did quite well. And
Yeah, maybe we'll recommend to the Youth Action Team that next year they're in on the full competition.
Oh, they were great.
Let them
They-
go.
In fact, they had a grade 9 student, Victoria Jackman, competed in the level 1 portion of the competition as a stand-in, and she was such an impressive young woman.
She took third place.
Yes, she took third place.
She won money.
Third place.
She
Right,
won-
was, you know,
she
and
won moolah.
she's a real accomplished young woman herself in her own right for
Oh.
some work that she's done with school. But it just goes to show again the level of talent and academia that we have in our school system. So they did such a great job. And the summer activity guide for 2013, I thought I brought along my copy, but I guess I didn't for reference. It's being distributed to all residents this week, and it's available at all city facilities. The general program registration begins on Monday, May 27th for our residents, and on Thursday, May 30th for non-residents. Once again, a really impressive document put together by our Community Services Department. Lots of information in it, lots of things happening in the city of Mount Pearl, of course, this summer. So I invite everybody to have a look at it. If they did not receive it or they fear that it has not been delivered, they can certainly call and we can make arrangements accordingly as well.
Thank you very much. That concludes Community Services. Corporate Services, Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item here has to do with tax deferral for low-income earners. There's 3 located there or outlined there, and I move these amounts as presented.
It is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke. It is seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
The next item is professional development and training for, who is this one? Director of Community Services. This is in accordance with our policy, and I so move.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Just to note, that's in Corner Brook from May the 24th to the 26th. The next item, Your Worship, are the invoices for council approval. Not as many here this week, certainly not the dollar amount. $338,008.33. And what's outstanding here? Let's see. Well, the big one, the street upgrading, $283,000. So the total is $338.33, and I move that the amount be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Any question or comment on invoices 1 through 7?
Yeah, question, Your Worship.
Councillor Aker?
Yeah, just a quick question to maybe the director can answer it. 2011 paving, this paving would have taken place last year. We're only paying that now. Was there any reason for the holdup, or is that pretty well routine?
Sometimes it's late in the year. That's a 2011 capital works project completed in 2012, and it was late last fall, and sometimes contractors just don't make application for payment until late in the fall or even during the winter. Believe it or not. They have to submit an invoice to us for us to make a payment. That's progress payment number 1.
Wow. Bit of a delay, yeah? All right, so we'll call the question on that.
All those in favor? Contrary minded, I wasn't sure if it had done that or not.
I think you had done it.
I did second.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
And the last item, Your Worship, is just some information on the Municipal Assessment Agency Claire Simmons Scholarship Award. We had information presented, again, by the agency, and this outlines the eligibility criteria for the scholarship. Again, Claire Simmons was business manager with Municipal Assessment Agency, I think, from 1998 to 2004. So it was recommended that staff be made aware of this scholarship through email, and as well placing some information brochures and the like through various city lunchrooms and of course that the public be made aware by placing the information on our city's website. And again, that's just for information purposes. And that's it
Okay.
for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Economic Development, Communication, and Tourism Committee report, Councillor Stoyles.
We just have one item this evening, Your Worship, and I guess it's more of a good news story. Dominion Loblaws announced last week that they were going paperless and with their weekly specials announcement, and of course we think it's great to see the business community doing this, because we get a lot of paper and flyers, and that flies out the carts and everything. So besides doing this, I mean, and according to the manager at Dominion here in Mount Pearl, it's probably going to take 2 to 3 years before everybody is totally paperless. So he's thinking that this is the new way of dealing. I know anybody can go online now and get on any supermarket and get their specials and get coupons and all that good stuff, but they still send out their weekly specials in the go bag as we know it, and I don't think that's going to stop for a while, but I think they're starting a new trend. So what we're looking at doing through the Economic Development Department is looking at doing a pilot project with the supermarkets and ask them for a month if they can highlight asking their cashiers to take the all flyers and everything back, or have somebody there, staff, actually doing it as people are leaving the store. I know one of the best places that I see around, and I'm not down there very often because my husband does most of the grocery shopping, thank God, I hate shopping, but down at the Price Club, they always take your stuff. When you leave the Price Club, most of the times they take they give you coupons on the way in, and when you're leaving, they take them, and it works really well. You hardly ever see much of a mess down around that area, because they do a great job of taking the coupons back. And we're going to be meeting with them through our Economic Development Department and trying to, because it is going to take a while for this to actually work, but we think it's coming, and I think the manager of Dominion sees it coming big time. He said they get more hits on the site now than ever before, people getting their ads and getting things even before the ads come out. So I want to say hats off, and I understand, Your Worship, you're going to send them a letter and
Yes.
under your signature, so we're looking forward to getting that out and say
Yeah.
hats off to them and great job, and I think it's,
A motion on that is not required.
no,
so we can
just for information.
Councillor Tessier?
Knew I was going to have to. I mean, we've discussed this in this public chamber for the past, I don't know how many years, Deputy Mayor, and easily. And I know I personally have said repeatedly, at point of sale, every store that has a flyer, but particularly in that area, because we see it. It's such a mess, especially in the spring. When you drive by there, we've had emails from residents who've been upset about the amount of litter from flyers in that area, especially along that fence. It's not difficult for every merchant, everywhere, particularly in that area, to ask at the point of sale, can I take your flyers? Have a recycling bin there, so you're still doing the right thing with the paper as well. I think that, this is a great move for Dominion. I'd like to see all the other merchants in that area follow suit, all the merchants everywhere in Mount Pearl. I mean, here we are working really hard to maintain a clean city. We have our spring cleanup every single year. We have our garbage bins now that are doing a great job helping to keep our city clean. I think it's a responsibility as well of the business owners to, again, do their part as well. And this is not a big deal. This is not hard. At the point of sale, there's all kinds of questions. Would you, do you have air miles? Do you have this? Do you have that? It's just a habit to get into to say, can I take your flyer? And I think it would make a significant difference to the amount of litter, specifically in that area of Mount Pearl, if all the merchants in that area did the same. And I hope that they will follow suit. I mean, I commend Dominion for doing this and leading the way, and I hope that everybody over there in that area follows suit and does the same thing. Electronic for the people who can. Not everybody can have electronic. Not everybody has the computer. However, it's not difficult to say, can I take your flyers from your cart?
Cannot disagree. Councillor Aker.
Yeah, I must say, I have to commend Dominion, and based on my limited experience dealing with the private sector, If everybody's doing the same thing, nothing changes. And all it takes is the first person to make the change, to go paperless. It's like Sunday shopping. Once one business did it, the rest had to follow. So maybe Dominion is basically, they're taking the lead here. I know personally I'd be willing to give them more of my business, knowing now that maybe down the road gold pegs could be eliminated. Maybe down the road I don't have to see all the fiber. You know, it's a very good environmental initiative here. We can't leave out those people, though, and I guess this is probably why it's taken so long for this to happen. The people who do want to see the paper copies, the people who don't have access to a wireless device or the internet, and maybe for the next 2 or 3 years we'll have to live with both systems. But you know, you can see this going the way of the dodo bird at the end of the day, and then maybe this is the first step. So I commend Dominion for taking that initiative.
And that concludes committee report. Moving on. Engineering Services Committee, Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. We start this evening with an update on the multiplex, as usual. Of course, construction continues to proceed according to plan. However, of course, when you get into a project of this size, you do have some changes from time to time. And to that end, this evening, I do have a change order to bring forward on the project. We are looking at a change order to increase the depth of the purlins. Purlins, I guess, is the pronunciation. In my limited exposure to this sort of thing, apparently these are beams, smaller beams that are part of the structure that supports the roof. And of course, we're increasing the diameter, the size of some of these, in order to make sure that the roof stays where it should, which of course can only be a good thing. The change order, the approximate cost here is $4,348,000.30. It is the recommendation of the committee that we proceed and approve this change order, so I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
They're long-term residents and not
The Purlins?
The Purlins. Took me a while, but I caught on, Councillor Aker. Just to conclude the update on the multiplex, the concrete foundation work is almost 100% complete, including the mechanical room as well as the fitness center. You'll also see that 60% of the steel has now been erected as part of the framing of the building. So it's certainly looking more and more like a building all the time, dare I say. As well, the trusses for the roof, the glulam trusses, they're being delivered and assembled on site. We're expecting that these are going to be tentatively scheduled to be installed around the end of May, coming into June. So again, we're going to be seeing the roof go up, at least parts of it, and we're getting up to the point now where the project is going to be getting near 50% complete. We're expecting maybe near the end of June we'll be able to say we're halfway there. So good news all around when it comes to the multiplex.
Excellent stuff.
And continuing on with the theme of good news, I'm very happy to report that the occupancy permit for the new softball hut at the Team Gujju complex has been issued. It was issued on May 9th. The Men's Softball League are now moving into the facility. I believe, I stand to be corrected, but they started games last night. I think I heard Councillor Aker and the Deputy Mayor referring to some competition down there last night.
Yeah, we lost miserably.
Are you both on the same team?
No.
We did play each other.
You played against each other? And who lost?
We got spanked with capital S. That's all I can say.
That's all you're going to say. You felt like a Montreal Canadian or a Maple Leaf at the end of the.
Not as bad as me.
Not as bad.
Certainly
as
not
Maple.
like an Ottawa Senator, anyway.
Well, actually, they're doing quite well.
They're doing very well. They would be like the winning side.
Our last great hope is the Senate. At least the planner appreciated what I said.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so getting back to the softball diamond, of course, the facility is a beautiful facility. We did sort of go into extra innings on that particular project, so I do want to once again commend. I want to commend the.
We're just all pun people today.
Absolutely. I want to commend the softball league for their sort of patience and working with us, willingness to work with us on the project. Certainly, we're glad that they're thrilled to be into the building and started their softball season.
So when are we going to do a formal transfer so we can all get a little glory here?
Probably looking maybe late June, maybe.
Late June?
I don't know if anybody else has any input, but that would be.
Yeah, we want to do a ceremony, turn over the keys, cut a ribbon, hit a ball, do something.
Throw out
You
the
know?
ceremonial first pitch.
Throw out the ceremonial first pitch. Everybody should take a swing. Let's cut a ribbon, yeah.
I would thought the softball players would like to maybe throw, show some skills. No. We'll cut the
We're gonna
ribbons.
go to item 3.
I think so. Keeping with the theme of ball fields, of course, I just wanted, for the information of council, let everybody know that the Grand Concourse Authority have been given authorization to proceed with some of the reworking of the Greenwood ball field, of course, up across from Dominion and the other merchants in the Pearlgate area. Of course, a lot of that ties in with the discussion earlier about the garbage and cleaning up that area. So it's good to see that we're going to be doing some revitalization in that area all around, be cleaning up the area and also improving the facility
Yeah.
in that area.
That's going to remain, though, as an unstructured field, right? Unscheduled field.
No, it's going to be
Yeah.
used for minor baseball.
It's going to be used, is it, for minor baseball now? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, it's going to be used primarily for minor baseball.
Regular basis this year.
Okay,
So it should be good.
good.
Our fourth item for engineering services this evening is a tender for asphalt crack sealing. We received 2 bids when the tender closed on April 26th. You'll see the 2 of them there. Of course, the budget for the project is about $27,403. It's recommended that the tender be awarded to the lowest bidder, which was Crown Contracting, at an amount of $28,277.12, and it is recommendation of the committee to proceed with that, so I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
And your worship, our final item this evening is another tender. This is for street upgrading and asphalt and concrete works. This is for a number of different items, I guess you'd say. It's to do, first of all, in conjunction with our upgrading of the Donovan's Business Park. Certainly some select items in there, including Glencoe Drive, are in need of some work, so we're going to be doing that as well. We're looking at installing sidewalk on Topsail Road, Mary Queen of the World School eastward to Civic number 727. So the tender on all of that was issued. It closed on May 3rd of 2013. We did receive 4 bids, and you'll see that the recommendation from the committee is to award the contract to Modern Heavy Civil Limited in the amount of $814,878.60. That was the lowest bid. The budget for the project was $950,000. So the recommendation for the committee is to proceed, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
And that does it for engineering.
I thank you, sir, very much. Planning and Land Use Development Committee, Councillor Aker, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is a little promotional work. We want to do talk a little bit about the Waterford Valley Cleanup Blitz. This will be the 3rd year. This was hatched by one of our former employees by the name of Monica Storch. She championed the river and has led to some really good things the last few years. So on May 25th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're calling upon the community to come on down and help us, not only council, but employees, city staff, to come down and clean up the river. We're going to assemble here at City Hall just before 10. And we'll get transported or walk down to the river. The goal this year is to try to attract more volunteers, and if we can get more volunteers, Your Worship, we're going to basically rely on a bit of carpooling to get us to other sections of the river. The section from, say, Pipers down to Riverview Avenue, that has been cleaned up 2 or 3 times. Not to say that it's pristine, but we feel there's other ends of the Waterford River that we'd also like to take a look at. So if we get more volunteers, we can have a bit more penetration here, and we can get more of the cleanup done.
Yeah, I'd like to see us go further the other way now.
And further north towards, say, Powers Pond.
Yeah.
Because you see, once you get down to the Steady Waters area, it's actually not, in my opinion, it's not overly safe to be out there wading in all that bog in the river. The further west, I guess, you get towards Paradise, the thinner the river is. The water level is lower. The velocity of the water is smaller, so it's basically a lot safer. So we're going to have barbecue then at 12 noon. I'd like to comment that and commend Mr. Don Kelly and Mr. Steve Butler with the city. They're organizing it. Sherry Fitzpatrick will be talking to members of QP 2099 to try to enlist their support. I know the Sport Alliance is helping out. Council will be there, I know. Conservation Corps. who partner with the city, and this year also
Yeah, we've got
hopefully
two green
with
teams.
the Chamber of Commerce. I think we've made the short list. Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
Well, maybe you know more than. But anyway, the Conservation Corps.
Both green teams have been approved,
Have they?
Chambers
That's
and
great
ours.
news. That
It's
is
my
really good
understanding.
news.
It's my understanding.
Yeah. So the
I
Corps,
could be wrong.
the Conservation Corps, and more than likely, many of the participants who are part of the green team will be there as well to assist. And I want to give Tim Hortons a big thank you. They're going to come by like they always do and provide some of the tea and the coffee. So we had T-shirts, a barbecue, and I know we can count on the support also of the Munn Rotarex and the Rotary Club of St. John's, who really have adopted the river, I guess, all the way up from the harbour. So I'd like to invite everybody to come to that fine event, and hopefully we'll have a good day. That's it, Your Worship, for that one. Next item, Your Worship, is number 2, as it relates to an environmental assessment undertaking for Atlantic Inspection Services. It's a NORM, NORM Decontamination and Temporary Storage Facility at 138 Clyde. NORM stands for Normally Occurring Radioactive Material. This has been in the news already. I want to reiterate that the city does not have an application for this. This is a proposal that currently is going through the provincial environmental regulations, and I'm sure probably at the same time there are other federal regulatory considerations as well. The Minister of Environment on May 7th registered the project and also sent it out for what they call an environmental preview report, which will involve basically establishing an assessment committee to engage in a public process as it relates to the tubular sampling. The tubulars are the pipes that are being removed from the offshore drilling facilities. It talks about transportation, descaling, storage, wastewater sampling, and you can see the list goes on. Generally speaking, this is a low level of radiation, but it does pose a risk, because anytime you're considering anything radioactive, you want to make sure you do your homework in terms of getting this through. Some time ago, I believe this same company did apply for a location in Donovan's Industrial Estates, and at that time, council turned it down, primarily on the basis, as I recall, on the basis that in our industrial or business park, which is zoned light industrial, the council of the day came to the conclusion that this was not a good use for that particular type of industrial park. The council of the day basically, I believe, suggested that a use like that should be in a heavy industrial park, which is not here in Mount Pearl. I'm wondering, Your Worship, do we, coming out of that as a group, as a council, not necessarily this group of council members, but as a council in general, do we have a little bit of unfinished business? Because if we knew that we didn't want in our light industrial zone use such as this, and by the way, this proposal is much the same as we received a few years ago, probably a little bit more intensive. The proposal in the past was more to do with the temporary storage and then subsequent transportation to facilities on the mainland. This proposal would involve not just storing the tubulars, but also removing the scaling and separating it, using water to do that, water which ultimately may become wastewater and has to be treated in itself. I'm wondering if we should take this back to committee and consider whether this type of use matches up with a permitted use in our light industrial zone. I'm sure council will want to be consistent in its deliberations, as we have in the past. And I guess as I think Councillor Walsh said last time this came up, what has really changed at the end of the day? Your Worship, I'd ask for commentary from council. Do you think we should take it back to the planning committee and look at the zoning? Is that pertinent at this time, even though we don't have a request for development, but yet we do have notification that there is a proposal coming at some point down in the process.
Council, anybody with a comment? Do you feel that this should be taken back? Obviously, what Councillor Aker is proposing is that the committee would take it back, look at changing our regulations, so that something which is now basically listed as a discretionary item within the zoning for our light industrial zone would become no longer discretionary. It would simply not be allowed. That would be the point that the committee would be considering. Have I articulated that correctly, Councillor Aker?
Yes.
That's what you would be looking at.
To remove the emotion from any of these issues, looking back at the way council has voted in the past,
Right.
basically to take a precedent that we've established and enshrine it in our regulations.
Your Worship.
Any comment, Councillor Stoyles?
I will
What's your
speak-
view?
I will speak to it. I think there's a great idea. I don't think that, most people sitting around the table would want that in our industrial park. I mean, we've talked about in the past, we wouldn't want, and the residents, and every time it comes up and there's a talk of something going in our park like that, we always hear, I can't believe, people say, I can't believe you're actually going to do that. So I think we really need to take it to committee and put our policies in place, and we'll never ever be ever again in a day that they won't be able to bring it to us, because once it goes, if it comes into the planning department just can say, well, our city don't allow that in our industrial park, and if they want to have it somewhere else outside the industrial park, if there was an area off to itself, or if it was some other area, even then I think we should say, no, we're not having the Mount Pearl, and that's it.
Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would have to say that I would have to concur with Councillor Stoyles' position on the matter. Especially given that as a council and as a city, we're looking at sort of revitalising Donovan's. It's a business park or a light industrial park. It's not necessarily a heavy industrial park where this type of use might be a bit more suitable. Through all of the, the consultation that our economic development staff have done with some of the current tenants in Donovan's, certainly they're looking at things such as sidewalks, different safety features, upgrades to the roads. So with all that in mind, this type of use, this type of norm facility certainly doesn't strike me as perhaps the most suitable of uses for a business park. So I, for one, would be happy to take it back to committee and certainly discuss what Councillor Akers is proposing.
Other comments? Deputy Mayor?
I'd agree with that, Your Worship. Again, based on when this hit the media last time and the number of calls and discussions I had throughout the community, not one single resident said, I think council should consider this application. Even once they knew there was no application before us, not one single resident said, I think you'd consider it. The exact opposite. They said, are you guys even going to consider this? And if that's the will of council, and to Councillor Akers' point, if we set precedent in the past, and to Councillor Stoll's point, that if we know it's not going to occur, or we're not going to approve it, why not stop it before it goes too far in the process? So I'd agree with taking it back to committee and seeing what changes could be made to the regulations and how we'd word it and stuff like that, and then bring it back to council for a decision.
Councillor Tessier, you're kind of nodding agreement here?
I'm nodding agreement. I don't think I've got a lot more to add than what's already been said, but I think we definitely wouldn't hurt if we come back and look at it. Take the discretion. It's not what we want to see, it's not what we want to see.
There is to speak to the other side of it for the purposes of trying to lend balance to the discussion. I am not enamored with having this stuff in our park. I'm kind of where everybody is. I'm concerned, though, that we would take something that we feel is, a huge danger, to find out down the road that in actual fact it wasn't. That in actual fact we have any number of things existing in our park today, including huge storages of propane, for example, that is an ever-present danger well beyond anything that norms may represent. So I wonder, should we short-circuit the process then? Given that a substantial amount of our business park is oil and gas related. Whether we like it or not, Mount Pearl is in this industry. We're a part of that game. I would be reticent to say, let's take it back to the committee and amputate the process, only to find after the fact that we've said, we're not open for this business, and this business goes somewhere else, only to find after the fact that there really isn't any major problem with this. Right? Now, I have the same fears and concerns as all the rest of you. I'm willing to, as I say, amputate the process. I just wonder, is that fair in light of the fact that, hey, we're in this game. We're in this business. And we have any number of examples of, I'll call it, hazardous storage or hazardous activity taking place in our park now that could be, I don't know, could be viewed as substantially more severe or more hazardous, let's say, than anything that norms might represent. Now, I'm just making the argument for the purpose of the debate. Should council take that into consideration before we quickly send it back to committee? Because the intent is obvious, right? The intent in sending it back to committee is to write us a regulation that kills this now. I just throw it out as a,
So are you saying now that we could turn around, we could send this back to committee and we can turn around and we can say that there could be 3, 2, 5 businesses in there that if we put a policy like that, we would tell them that?
No, I don't think so.
That's not what you're saying.
No, I don't think so. I think you're just dealing
All
with
right.
this issue
Just this one issue
of these normally
hazardous wastes.
occurring radiation pieces.
Radiation.
Yeah. We did turn it down several years ago, but I'm not sure that there was as much knowledge or as much information as may exist today and so on. But, again, I'm not speaking to the proposal. What I'm speaking to is an issue of process.
That's the beauty of the committee taking it back and having a further look at it, a more involved look at it. Things have evolved in 7 years. I mean, we all know that. And so they'll have a look at it, I guess, and determine what are safe practices that are happening in other areas besides Mount Pearl, and then come back with a recommendation. At the end of the process, we're still going to review all the information, and we're still going to vote on it. So we can still determine what it is that we want to see after there is new information compiled and it's been reviewed by the professionals and by council as well.
There is in the letter from the minister a note. He says in the letter, I will shortly be appointing an assessment committee with a representative from each interested agency on the concerns to be addressed in the EPR. And the EPR stands for, what does it stand for? Something pre. It's pre-report. Do we take it back to the committee to go through that exercise at this point, or do we engage in the process and declare ourselves, obviously, and I believe that we can say that we are a stakeholder in this, and therefore we want a representative on their assessment committee? Do we do that instead? Or, I'm just throwing it out. Go ahead, Councillor Aker. We're just a general discussion here. We're not.
It's a great discussion because I don't think any business should ever set up in this city and then right in the middle of the game, as I'll term it, that we change the rules on them. My thinking is that we remove the emotion from this because the word radioactive gets everybody's blood pressure up and, gets their hair standing up. I want to remove the emotion. I think what council has to deal with just in the short run is a precedent that it established. What I suggest we do is we will take it back to committee, and the question then becomes, when we established that precedent a few years ago, should we have at that time really thought further and set up a regulation? Because council will have to reconcile, Your Worship, with any change in position. And what you're suggesting is that maybe there's more knowledge now in the community about norm, or there's better practices been developed to deal with it. So
that the issues of safety and whether or not this is a business that can be conducted in an environment like Donovan's Business Park is being handled now by the Department of Environment through the Environmental Protection Act. They are going to hold a hearing on it. The company is going to have to prove that in actual fact what it is they intend to do can be carried out safely, right. And so on. So in light of that, do we, because all of this is being driven by the proposed application to us, do we amputate that process now? If we take it back to committee brings back a recommendation that I think, you say, take the emotion out of it. I think the committee could come back with a recommendation Tuesday after next at our next public meeting recommending that we take this thing completely out of our regulations.
But I would argue that we would be doing that based on emotion. And maybe what we need to be doing is reviewing this at committee and watching this environmental assessment process unfold.
I would.
And
I don't
possibly,
disagree.
as
I don't
you
disagree with
suggested,
that, but I really
be
think that.
participants.
Yeah, I really think we should clarify with the minister whether or not, when he says there's going to be a representative from each interested agency on the concerns to be addressed on the assessment committee, should we not ask the minister to put us on the committee because we want a representative there because we are an interested agency?
Or your worship. at
I'm
the
going
very
to stop you for a second.
You're gonna get
Council.
somebody else
Yeah. Well, Mr. Yafchek has indicated, our planner has indicated, and he's dealing with this particular file. Mr. Yafchek.
Your worship, thank you very much. We have contacted the department regarding the committee, and if there was any intention in terms of having us having a representative on the committee, we were advised at the time, and this is all verbal, that the minister will make the decision as to who is a representative on the committee, what are the special agencies, and then they will advise us. So
I guess one of the problems for us.
we have contacted them, right?
Yeah, and I guess one of the problems for us in arguing that we want to be a part of the assessment committee because we're an interested agency is that in reality we don't even have an application. That means we're no different than Paradise or Gander. There's no panic. No, I agree.
No, I agree. There's no panic, and all we have to do is reconcile in our minds. Our citizens rely upon us to make decisions as a council and to be consistent with those decisions unless circumstances dictate. And the only issue I wanted to take back to committee was, has anything really changed here? And why would we send a fool further? Why would we have a company go through all this process knowing that basically council is very much committed through precedent more than through regulation, through precedent, committed to perhaps not seeing this. But I guess what you're suggesting, Your Worship, maybe we should just take our time, keep an open mind, and near the end of the provincial process, then at that point in time we could consider what we're going to do in light of our past council decisions, as well as in terms of what regulations.
Sure, we've made any number of decisions over the years that we've changed our mind on and so on.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and things of that nature. But, you know, to have the committee go back and look at it and say, and come forward with a course of action, if we intend not to allow this, this is what we have to do, I have no problem with that. I'm not sure, though, I want to see us thwart this process, given that, as you term it, and I use it, we're in the game. We're in the oil and gas business. You know, and it seems maybe a touch premature for us to just at this point say we're not going to take a look at this ever again because of the precedent that we set 7 or 8 years ago.
Well, let's be part of the solution as opposed to just putting up the problem.
Well, I guess we're kind of saying the same thing. Yeah. All right, but anyway, so that being the case, then obviously yes, we're going to refer it back to committee, and one of the things we want is to find out whether or not the minister is going to be prepared to identify us as one of the interested agencies. We're going to request that we be identified as one of the interested agencies because of the level of oil and gas business in our community, and because this proposal has been discussed directly with us.
So would we
even
have
though we
a
don't have an
staff person
application.
then?
I'm not sure how we would go about doing it. That would be something for the committee to come back and recommend if at the time the minister says, yeah, we're going to have you guys sit at this assessment table. Well, then we'll say, okay, who should it be? Don't you think?
Yeah, a couple of options I can see unfolding. Either we'll be part of the assessment committee, or we'll certainly we'll represent ourselves in front of the assessment committee. I'm sure there will be
one way or the other.
process.
Yeah.
And really, this is all about really being proactive on an issue, because as Councillor Stoyles said earlier on, if we don't try to stay in tune with what a company may be proposing to do in our industrial park, our residents will look upon us. The emotion will get kick-started.
Yeah.
The residents will say, why would you have even allowed that in the first place?
Yeah.
So I'd rather we stay proactive on the issue, maybe delay any looking at the regulations, but at least genuinely participate in the process.
That's where I'd like to see it.
Yeah,
For this moment, I agree with you. That's where I'd like to see. Let's genuinely participate. And once we've gone through that, I think then it's fair for us to say, yeah, maybe our regulations need to be either loosened up or tightened up, or, Okay, perfect. Moving along.
Finally, number 3. We have an amendment, non-conforming accessory building amendment. It's amendment number 16 dated 2013. This relates to basically buildings that are non-conforming now. And in the case of one homeowner, they would just like to essentially tear that building down, not make the non-conforming use any worse. But typically, when a building gets torn down and replaced with a new building, our new regulations would kick in, so the non-conforming use basically would not be allowed. We're just, the committee has reviewed this. We'd like to make a change to the regulations to give council the discretion to approve this. This probably won't come to our table very often.
No,
We're
we've
talking about a
reviewed
rather
this.
large accessory building which is non-conforming, and the resident has the funds to tear it down and replace it. That's not your everyday routine application from the planning department, hopefully.
I've got a question.
So, sorry, we did have notification. We engaged in the public notification process, including setting up a briefing session. We've received no feedback to date, and I'd like to move the text amendment, please.
It is moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Question or comment, Councillor Stoyles, you have a question?
I do have one question, or there was a question or a comment. I'm just concerned about, I certainly support what we're in the process of doing, but when, is there such a thing as grandfathering? If somebody has a
Yes.
building there and they just want to put they just want to put the same thing back, and they come to us looking for a permit, and they didn't meet the regulations in the beginning because it was there and it was grandfathered in probably 30 years ago. Would we allow, is each case going to be done on its own merit, or once we change this now and change the text, I'm just wondering if somebody has a larger building that they're supposed to have I'm thinking of the older lots in the city, and they just wanted to tear something down and redo it, and they come and get a permit, and everything is fine. Then all of a sudden, will we turn around and say to them, we've changed our policies now, you only can put half of that back up. I'm just wondering, can that happen? I'm just curious about
Mr. Yefchek, you want to tackle that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Stoyles, the way the regulations are structured, and basically, I guess, the law regarding zoning regulation, if you have a non-conforming building, you can repair it, you can renovate it in its present form, and there will be no requirement to conform to the present day standard. If, however, you decide to tear down that building, then you are then required. It's considered a new building, new development, and then you're required to conform to the regulations. And that would mean building size, setbacks, and so on. What this proposal is a bit, I guess, between both circumstances. The committee and I believe council has acknowledged that there are several large accessory buildings in the city. We do have an application to relocate, to tear down and relocate the building the same size on the lot in almost the same location, but slightly different. And the committee was of the view that this is something that should be considered by council. They didn't see that this would have any other impact on surrounding properties than what is there right now. On that basis, they felt that we should amend the regulations to allow something like this. So that's the purpose of the regulation.
So basically, a person that has a non-conforming use now, and it's in the right side of their property, we're going to let them demolish the building, build a new building that will also be a non-conforming use, conforming use after, on the left side of the property.
But it's not any worse.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are no additional impacts to surrounding properties or that particular property, even though their demolition of that building affords us the opportunity to try and demand that they make something that conforms.
Well, my understanding was the reason for the discretion is because we can take, to Councillor Stoll's point, we can take a case-by-case, situation and assess each one on their own merit. My understanding in this particular case, given the size of the lot and the layout, that by moving this structure, slightly, is not going to cause any adverse impacts. So I don't think it's going to be just as simple, Your Worship, as saying, I have a non-conforming building in my right side of my backyard, and I'm going to tear down and build it over on the left side, because it could impact shading, it can impact noise. I think these changes, text amendments, will allow council to assess each application that comes before us. And again, I don't foresee huge numbers of such applications, given that we have limited size, large lots in the city. So,
The purpose of this proposed amendment, quoting right from it, Councillor Stoyles, the purpose of this proposed amendment is to provide council with the discretionary authority to consider the relocation of existing accessory buildings that are non-conforming with respect to the standards in these regulations. So what you're asking, the answer is yes.
Yes.
That actually they will be considered by council, and yes, they will be case by case.
There will be
Is that not directly to the issue? Any other question or comment? Hearing none, I'll call it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion is carried. We are buggers for the detail, aren't we?
Real quick now, the
Good thing, good thing.
Canadian Home Builders, just wanted to let council know that the Home Builders Eastern Newfoundland and Labrador's Technical Committee are coming in with a new certification program for what we call new home builders, and that will be branded as Master Builder. And then for the home renovators, it will be called Renomark. And basically, this certification program is driven by the technical side of the home builders, but it's also a very good marketing thing. When you buy a house that's been done by a master builder, ideally, you probably will end up with better quality and better workmanship and a building that will last longer. Similarly, if you have renovations done by a company that has the Renomark, has met the Renomark standard, you should basically be getting a much higher quality in terms of the renovation. That I guess the question for council coming down the road will be whether or not perhaps we should require all of our builders. Maybe that will come someday, but I don't see that in the short run. This is an initiative of the home builders, and I want to bring that to council for the information.
Don't you think that to some degree that's a thin edge of a wedge?
Yeah.
That there does come a point when we're going to be asked as a regulatory agency, that we are going to be asked to say when someone comes in with an application and they want to renovate their house, we will make approval of that application subject to their use of someone who is certified as either master builder or a Renomark home renovator, right? I mean, that's the next step after this, right?
That is the challenge. Yes, sir. Yeah,
what about the people
I
who want to
agree.
do home renovations on their own?
Yeah.
That come down from
That's
the
where,
issue, right?
but that's where that debate will eventually.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And the city staff are part of this technical committee, and generally speaking, I think I'm safe in saying this, they're behind all this. Because ultimately what it means for our inspectors, right, is basically a higher expectation that when they go out to inspect work, that it's going to achieve the goals, that, a certain standard gets met within the city. But I don't see it happening overnight.
Anytime soon.
You'd
no.
almost want to see that, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a number. 75% of all renovators out there have adopted this standard. You know what I mean? It's got to be commonly accepted before we would ever, I would think, consider that as part of our regulatory process. And Your Worship, there may be competing standards out there too. There might be another one out there called Reno something else.
Well, we already have within the city. For example, if you want to do work in the city, you must be core certified. Right?
Yes.
No contractor out there, any contractor attempting to do any work or bid on any work for the city of Mount Pearl, if they are not core certified, they can't even bid.
And there's many companies
That's
out there.
that's fairly recent.
It
That's
is
only-
the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
fairly
give or take,
recent, right? That we've
Yeah.
everybody that wants to do any work for the city got to meet that standard.
Well, electricians are the same way.
Now same way.
Electricians
Now
are the
though,
same.
what we're saying is we haven't been. We could be asked shortly by the Canadian Home Builders Association, who, let's be honest, deal with an underground market that's killing them. We could be asked, protect your consumers and your taxpayers, and in so doing, protect us by demanding that anybody that wants a permit to do work in the city of Mount Pearl, the people doing that work on your behalf, have to be almost core certified, that sort of thing. That, to me, is the natural next step from this. That's all. I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it, I'm just saying it looks like rain. You know what I mean? That's the next step. That's just for our information.
Yeah, let's move on to number 5, shall we?
Thank you.
We have a referral regarding some development in the town of Port Chico Cove, St. Phillips. This is, it relates to the St. John's Urban Regional Plan. Committee's looked at it. This committee sees no issue with it. I just wanted to advise council that in our planning committee meetings, we've kind of taken the view, if any of these subdivisions, whether it be, no matter where it's located, if it impacts the regional water system, if it impacts the regional wastewater, where there are separate committees, you know what I mean, out there, we would automatically have this referred to them as well, because the city itself doesn't speak on behalf of those committees, but yet we know that there's issues that may come up in terms of water capacity or wastewater capacity. So I'd like to move that the Portugal Cove St. Phillips amendment, that we would basically advise there is no negative impact or adverse implications, and we're okay with it.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is very similar. It's the rezoning, I think, of some land out in Balleen, and again referred to us under the St. John's Urban Regional Plan, and much the same situation. The committee finds no issue with this, and I so move.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Now, I can go back to my agenda. I'm glad it was done this way. Thank
Yep.
you very much. Proposed new office building at 2 Olympic Drive. Planning and engineering have reviewed this. They're prepared now to start issuing permits. Before a development permit gets issued, we need to give the mayor, I think, and the CAO authorization to approve two buildings on one lot, and I so move.
Moved, seconded, question or comment? This is going to be a nice new office building up at the end of Olympic Drive.
Right behind the fire hall. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to look. It's going to look pretty neat. There's been a picture up there and a sign for a long time.
Yep.
You know, whenever you go in, you see the sign there. It looks like now the building's going to go there. That's good.
That's what Tim Hortons is, right?
That's right. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
The next thing is, Your Worship, is an increase in building height at 11 Panther Place, originally proposed to be 21.3 meters. Well, it's going to end up as 23 meters. But this was a discretionary approval of council, and we could have approved the additional 21 versus 23. What are we talking about? 1.7 meters at the time. There's no public consultation process we have to go through. The report indicates some issues that the company had during construction, and really what happened was they thought they needed I think they call it a mouse hole. They needed a deeper mouse hole because some of the pipes they may be processing from the offshore could end up, I guess, in helping the natural gas industry, might have to be longer. So they've decided to go with a slightly higher building and a deeper mouse hole. We could have, if it had been proposed to us at 23 meters at the time, we undoubtedly would have approved it. We don't see any negative impact, and I would ask council if they would use the discretion to approve it.
Moved, seconded. No norms in any of these pipes that are going to put in these mouse holes, are there?
Well, but you're right. But that goes to our point.
We're in the business.
We are in the business of the offshore.
We're in the oil and gas business.
Yeah.
We should never forget that.
So we're into.
It's within the norms of our
we're
regulations.
into getting the oil out.
He's been punning all day.
The question is, yeah, yes, hasn't he, Rick? You know. Yes. And it's a fairly big mouse. It's quite deep, apparently.
It's a big mouse. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The nice thing about the next one is that we read it and we move on. Notice of motion, maybe. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act, take notice that I, at a regular meeting of council, will move an amendment to the City of Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 that, if enacted, will amend the land use zoning map as follows. At Pearlview, Phase 1, amend the City of Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 from residential single unit detached to residential medium density, and the purpose of this proposed amendment is to allow the construction of a single dwelling with or without a subsidiary apartment on lots with a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters. Development permit list, Your Worship, April 29th to May 10th. We have permits numbered 21 through 24, and I so move.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? Contrary minded, carried.
Residential permits from April 27th to May 10th, I believe it is. The total for the period is $1,289,750, and I so move.
All those in favor? Contrary minded? Carried.
Commercial in the amount, for the same period, commercial in the amount of $1 million, and I so move.
All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And that is it.
Thank you very much. Well, let's mix her up this week.
Did you want to do the, Your Worship, did you want to do the proclamation?
Yeah, we are. We should maybe do those two very quickly. Unfortunately, Mr. Aylward was not able to be with us today. For the record, we are going to do the proclamations and then we'll go to new business. The first one is about the Jumpstart program. It says, whereas 1 in 3 Canadian families cannot afford to involve their children in sport or recreational activities, whereas Jumpstart believes all kids should have the chance to run, skate, play, grow, and participate in organized sports and recreation, such as hockey, dance, swimming, and basketball, so they can develop important life skills, self-esteem, and confidence, something the Maple Leafs should have had. Whereas Canadian Tire Jumpstart helps kids in financial need participate in organized sport and recreation, with 100% of customer donations going directly to kids in this community. And whereas since 2005, Canadian Tire Jumpstart has helped more than 565,000 children across Canada participate in organized physical activities, including 13,821 children here in the Avalon chapter. And whereas Jumpstart Day is a day dedicated to raising awareness across Canada so all kids can play, now therefore I, Mayor Randy Sims, on behalf of the Mount Pearl City Council, do hereby proclaim May 25th as Jumpstart Day to give kids a sporting chance in our community. And I know that the Jumpstart program works hand in hand with our Sport Alliance, and they do an awful lot of good stuff. With that in mind, Councillor Tessier, you want to address this?
Yes. In Mr. Aylward's absence, I just want to commend the Canadian Tire Foundation for Families for doing such exceptional work with their Jumpstart program. In Mount Pearl, 685 children have been subsidized in the amount of $143,538.50 since 2006. That is significant numbers. That's a lot of money. And in 2012 alone, 112 Mount Pearl children were subsidized by the Canadian Tire Jumpstart program in the amount of $29,238. So that amount of money, nearly $30,000, is money that was allocated towards youth in sport in the city of Mount Pearl that otherwise they would not have been able to avail of those sporting activities. So we want to commend the Canadian Tire Jumpstart program for this exceptional initiative. They do it every year. They're having a Jumpstart Day. Everybody go and frequent it and make a donation. There's lots of criteria for the people who qualify for Jumpstart. Canadian Tire will be happy to tell you what they are. But again, we just want to, as Chair of Community Services, and I know as our council, we want to commend this program because the youth in Mount Pearl who really would struggle to avail of sporting, organized sporting activities now can because of Jumpstart. And Sean McKenna, of course, is our staff person with this program, and he does exceptional work with this every single solitary year as well. So we want to thank Sean for his work with this program as well.
Thank you very much. We'll get a copy of the signed proclamation off to Mr. Aylward. Maybe with a letter quoting some of the comments made by Councillor Tessier as well. The second one is Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month in recognition of the exceptional progress that has been made in Canada in cystic fibrosis research and care, and to help create a healthier, brighter future for many Canadians living with this disease. The City of Mount Pearl is pleased to designate the month of May as Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month. Time is precious for Canadians with cystic fibrosis. CF is the most common fatal genetic disease affecting Canadian children and young adults. There is no cure. It is a multi-system disease that attacks the lungs and digestive system. There are almost 4,000 Canadians living with CF. Each week in Canada, 2 children are diagnosed with the disease. 1 person dies from this disease. May is a time to focus on Canadians with CF and support the important work Cystic Fibrosis Canada is doing to combat this devastating disease. We want to encourage our citizens to join Cystic Fibrosis Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador chapter, which are holding fundraisers in the month of May with the Great Strides Walk, and in July, their Ride for the Breath of Life. Join the fight to find a cure to cystic fibrosis, and which that we will also, we do not have anyone here to speak to this one today, but I did receive an email, and I passed it on to our clerk, and she graciously saw to it we could get this in the agenda today and have it signed. We will return it to Ms. Betty Shepard with the Newfoundland and Labrador chapter of CF. We are moving on then at that note, unless someone has a comment. We are going to go to new business, and we'll mix it up a little bit this week. We're going to start with the Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Firstly, Your Worship, I want to mention our softball game last evening. Councillor Aker played very well.
Oh, let's talk about Toronto instead.
Yes, no, this was a much better game.
Yeah, but I like torturing Councillor Tessier.
Yeah. And I don't know about Councillor Aker, but I'm a little stiff today. And you don't swing a bat for so many months, and then you get down and
What are you talking about? You two guys, you haven't swung a bat since you were 12.
I think you're 16 again, and so even my earlobes are sore today. I don't know what the heck I was doing on the field for that, but it was. The commentary we received from the players down there, they were very impressed, very complimentary towards the city and all the efforts that the city took.
Like the field, love the building.
They liked everything about it. Except some of the outfielders, like me, when I got out there, realized just how bloody big the outfield is when you get out there. And so it's a lot bigger to cover, My right field zone now has expanded, exponentially.
You thought they were just going to hit the ball to you.
Oh my gosh! So, but it was great. There's one point, however, that I did want to mention, and I don't know if Councillor Aker made note of this last night, but I noticed it myself because I was the second one at bat, of course, on the team, which is never good. And the guy before me, he gets up and hits a triple. So the pressure's on me. So my first two swings, the ball went over the fence, out into the parking lot. So, the cage that we have there, and I counted in our game five balls that escaped the netting that we have up and ended up down into the soccer parking lot. So I don't know if there's something we can do to extend the net.
Well, it's got to be done immediately.
And my concern was now, fortunately, my swings didn't result in any high hit balls or hard hit balls, but nonetheless, in all seriousness, they did go over the backstop and land there. So I pictured it when I saw these going on, because some of the players hit some solid hits that escaped the netting, went over the netting, went in between the netting, and I pictured this in the summertime when all these soccer players are down there and the potential for some damage either to cars or...
That has to be a priority.
So
they're on the field now and they're going to be playing every day, so the incidents, we don't need any.
I did want to bring that up, but other than that, the compliments were flowing down there last night. A beautiful facility, great field, and again,
wonderful.
Many thanks to the city staff. Also, Family Fun Day on May the 5th up at the Reed Centre that we attended. I was impressed. It was probably one of the warmer days that we had the year, and when I went up there, I said, now this can be either good or bad. But it was wonderful. It was a great turnout, and I just wanted to again compliment the organisers up there. It went very well, as well as the seniors' health and awareness day they had. Was that last Wednesday? Yep. Unfortunately, I couldn't get there. I think Councillor Aker was there to bring greetings on behalf of us. I couldn't get out due to work commitments, but again, I was surprised at the number of seniors that were up there. And again, the compliments were great. All the booths that were there, so they enjoyed it very much, and they had a little sing-along, and they always like the giveaways and the gifts and draws and stuff like that. And the last thing for me, Your Worship, I just wanted to mention Judge Gordon Seabright, and we received notice today of his passing, and huge loss. He was 79 years old, a great community leader, a great force, and I just wanted to express my condolences publicly to the Seabright family. I did get the opportunity to teach his grandson Robert, and fine young man, and I just wanted to again acknowledge Judge Seabright. He certainly will be missed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Tessier.
I want to echo your sentiments towards Gordon Seabright. He's somebody that you knew when he entered the room.
Absolutely.
You knew when he entered the building. So it's a tremendous loss for the city of Mount Pearl. Tremendous loss, because he wasn't just a member of the community that we knew as somebody who was an exceptional volunteer. I think he chaired the first Frosty Festival Committee. He was a friend, and there was no doubt about it. And
to us all.
Yes, absolutely. And there was no putting on airs. There was no cutting corners. You never ever had to wonder what he was thinking. You never had to wonder. And when he spoke, you knew that he was genuine. So it was a shock this morning, I got to tell you, to hear that he passed. And I know that we'll all be able to do it throughout the course of the week, but I did want to also express my condolences to his family and his friends. etc. 27 has happened this past week in Mount Pearl. What a tremendous show once again. The
Yeah,
students,
fantastic.
students
They're going to do
went
some of it, are they
on.
not, at the awards tomorrow?
Yeah, they're going to be performing at the youth awards.
Yes,
Yeah.
not some exact shows from et cetera,
Yeah.
but yeah, some of the students will be performing.
That's
there.
right.
Yep.
And it was just an exceptional show. Again, you're never ready for it to be over. When it happens, when you're sitting there and you're watching it, you're just never ready for the show to be over, and you got to keep reminding yourself that these are young people performing, because they're just outstanding, and you can always see the level of commitment that they put into it. Last night, we've often talked to public council about roaming animals in the city, and how it's a real nuisance if they'll get into your garbage or into your flower beds, or they're leaving a mess on your lawn. Well, last night I was coming up Park Avenue and had the very unfortunate circumstance of coming upon a cat that had been hit by a car.
Oh, my.
And the cat had not made it, and it was very disturbing because I pulled up onto it. I didn't want someone to run over it. I certainly didn't want to run over it myself, so I stopped. Everything behind me stopped very slowly, pulled in around so everybody recognized that there was an obstruction in the road. Before I could even get out of my car, there was an older gentleman out of his truck, and bless him, he took the poor animal and put it into the sidewalk so that it would not be run over. So, and he was disturbed by it, and there was another woman who had stopped, and she was very visibly disturbed, and it was very upsetting for all of
Anybody
us.
find the owner?
No, it was all very immediate, and it was very upsetting for everybody because it's somebody's pet. I mean, if you have a pet, if you care about your animals, you know how devastating it would be to lose one, particularly so tragically. So when we talk about letting your animals open the door and let your animals go, it's not like it used to be. Our streets are busy. Traffic is moving, and unfortunately, sometimes it's moving too fast. But it was just an unsettling situation. I mean, we called our city crews, and they came and certainly did what they needed to do. But it was another side of it, that you don't sometimes think about it unless you see it. And I particularly felt for the gentleman who provided great assistance to respectfully remove the animal from the road so that it wouldn't get run over anymore. So it was upsetting. So again, a reminder to the residents: you really cannot let your animals roam in the city.
Supposed to be on a leash, even a cat.
Absolutely, it's against our regulations. There's so very many good reasons why. This is definitely up there with some of the best reasons why you should not let your animals roam in the city. We are a city environment, and our traffic dictates that. And I had a discussion with the director today about this, the director of Public Works, and he also brought up, and it was a fabulous point. We have up at Powers Pond beautiful fowl life living up there now, lots of ducks, and as with every area where you have a duck population, sometimes they leave the watershed and they come out onto your lawns and into the neighborhood. We see it on Waterford Bridge Road all the time. Nobody travels Waterford Bridge Road without slowing down the second they get to Bowring Park. We need to start doing that. We need to recognize that, especially in the Powers Pond area in Mount Pearl as well, because our ducks are leaving sometimes, and they are crossing the road, and they are settling up on your lawn sometimes. It's really important that we recognize speeding traffic. It's not just for the children. It's not just to make sure you don't get a ticket. It's not just to make sure you don't cause an accident. We have other things that are roaming around in our streets as well, and I think that people need to be very cognizant of that. And in keeping with what we've seen in other areas in the region, when you have animals, wildlife like ducks, for example, that might cross roads, that might frequent the areas, there's sometimes signs just put up to remind people that ducks may cross. And I think that the director is going to look at doing something like that as well after our discussion, look at doing something like that in the Powers Pond area as well, because the population is increasing. And we want to make sure that we keep them safe as well and remind people. And also on the 22nd of May, next Wednesday night, the Cadets are having their annual Ladies' Night.
Oh, there was quite a discussion at my house about it.
I bet.
Thursday night.
I'm assuming, I think it's the 22nd. 22nd. I'm sorry? Is the deputy mayor going to Ladies' Night?
I'm not allowed to go.
Oh, I can't see, if you're willing to, yeah, you're going to crash it. Anyway, it's the 22nd. It's a sit-down meal. There's live entertainment. There's going to be silent auction and jewelry sales, all kinds of things that really get us women folk very, very excited. And at the same time, they're raising money to support some phenomenal charities, as the Cadets do so very, very well. So if you haven't got your ticket and you're interested in going, contact a member of the Connect Club, go on their Facebook page, make some calls, and they'll be happy to help arrange a ticket for
My
you.
wife told her friend that she don't have to do that because Councillor Stoyles takes care of it.
All done.
That's all I know.
She's a diligent woman, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
And it's good that it's on the 22nd because that's golf day.
Perfect. You can stay out late.
So I can stay out late
You can
and
stay
she
out
can
late.
too.
Anyway, I just want to remind people as well, if they want to attend that wonderful event,
Wonderful.
the Knights would love to have them.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Aker.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I too want to extend heartfelt condolences to the Seabright family. He certainly was not just a city leader, but a city father. And if you ever spent any time with him, you knew he was in the room. And if you said something couldn't be done, he'd be the first to show you the way that it could be done. And he was involved with so much. I think he's resting at Barrett's here in Mount Pearl, and I think the burial is at 2 o'clock on Friday. So. Yeah. So we feel for the family as we sit here today. But on a more happier note, I want to congratulate, and this happened this afternoon, I believe, up at the senior high, Leslie Marie Lahi, the first ever Chief of Police Student Award was awarded today to Leslie Marie, and she's a longtime resident of Mount Pearl. I think she's a swimmer. She's played soccer, but she also volunteers at the Janeway, and she volunteers with St. Vincent de Paul. She was chosen by a panel of judges, and I believe Deputy Chief at Singleton was at senior high there today. So I just want to congratulate Leslie Marie and her family on a job well done. And that's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of items. First thing I want to mention, I received a number of calls concerning our parks, and of course with the winter being over and everything, a number of people, the Graham Place Park and the Champagne Crescent Park on the hill, I've had a number of calls on both of those with the slides broken and swings not cracked and things like that. I'm just wondering, I know our director, Jason Collins, is not here today, but I'm just wondering if we could pass it along to him and make sure that our parks of all, we used to have a safety officer, safety
We
park
have two.
Yes, go around and check
right.
all the
We have
parks. And I
two.
guess it's not done yet for this year, is it? Because people were asking me about it, and I was just saying to them, maybe we haven't got all of our parks fully, the swings and everything done. So you're going to check and see? All right, so just wanted to follow up on that because I have had a couple of calls and concerns about it. And the other thing I wanted to mention was also damage done by our equipment, grass damage mostly and sidewalk damage. And we do, if our equipment does damage, the city will repair the grass and lawns. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's a deadline, because I thought that we had put a policy in place a couple of years ago that it was the end of June. But somebody had said to me, how much time do I have to put in my complaint or my information to the city if I had damage done? Because a lot of people don't realize that we will go and our crews will be out and do the repairs. I'm just wondering if there's a deadline, Mr. Randall.
I'm not aware of a deadline that we have established for lawn damages. They can contact us at the depot and we'll put it on our list and we'll get to that as soon as we can.
Okay, because I understood that there was by the end of June. I thought if they hadn't had me in, they wouldn't get.
I would think we should have one. If we don't
I
have
thought
one,
we
we
did.
should
I'm
have.
sure we discussed it a few years ago. So I certainly was on our agenda. I don't know if it's in the minutes there, but I think
We should
I
check
think
on it, and we
did.
certainly should have one. One shouldn't arbitrarily be able to pick up a phone in July and call in about what they think was damaged last February. And I think there has to be a limit to that, you know, so that you avoid. You want to close the door on the Lord, lead me not into temptation. You know, right? To protect the taxpayer, quite frankly, we are obligated to avoid the cheater. And so if there should be some kind
But
of somebody who's legitimately got a damage to their lawn
But really,
by
I'm
the
just.
1st of June, they should have that in our hands, right?
But with our staff on the go all the time and picking up our garbage and things like that, I'm just wondering if we notice that somebody that we actually did damage to somebody's lawn, because the past few the past 2 months I've been out going around, I've noticed a number of them damaged. I'm just wondering, if we notice, would we automatically go and fix them, or do the residents have to actually? I'm just wondering. Maybe some of the maybe the residents don't really realise that we go and we will repair them. And I'm just wondering, if we see it and we know that we actually did it, because you can clearly see that it was dug in with a blade, wouldn't we just automatically go ahead and do it? I'm just wondering if, while our inspectors are out, if they see something and know that our staff, that we actually did it, can we actually, do the repairs?
Generally, our focus is on, when we look and see these things, is in city-owned spaces, open spaces, for example, on Old Placentia Road. We'll see that and we'll put that on our list. It's our property. When it comes to private damages, we'd expect residents to contact us and advise us of the damage, and then we'll send crews to repair as soon as we can.
Okay.
So.
All right. I also want.
We just can't go out hunting for it. We're
not going to go out. But if we seen one, I was just wondering if we would.
No, because we don't know that it's our damage. We have no way of knowing that it's our damage.
Okay.
Right?
I also want to touch on the family fund day. That was something that Crime Prevention put off, and of course the money that they raised that day last Saturday for the family fund day went to the DEER program. So it was great to see them doing. I think it's the first time that I've noticed that I've been to an event that the DEER program actually did a fundraiser like that for themselves through the crime prevention. So hats off to them. It was a great crowd there, a lot of families, and I must say it was a great afternoon. Also, Your Worship, I wanted to pass along my sympathies to the Tappert family. Ruth Tappert, who was a long-time resident of Mount Pearl, passed away this past week as well. And of course, I wouldn't be able to sit down without passing on my sympathy to the Seabright family. Everybody knew Gordon as the judge, and he certainly played a big part in the community with Children's Wish, the Kidney Foundation. I've known him, I was going to say most of my life, but just about ever since I've lived in Mount Pearl, I've known Gordon Seabright. And he was a household name, especially 20 years ago when he was in his heyday doing everything for the city. And I certainly want to pass along my sympathy to his wife Madge and his son and grandson and the rest of the family. But he's certainly a loss for the city of Mount Pearl. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few items this evening. I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. I do also want to join with the rest of Council to offer my sympathies to the Seabright family. Certainly, one of the things that I flashed back to when I first heard the news this morning was, as Councillor Tessier mentioned, the fact that he chaired the first Frosty Festival, which is an organisation that's near and dear to my heart. I was fortunate enough to chair the Frosty Festival, but of course, Gordon Seabright had chaired it for 10 years. The first 10 years he was the chair. And I remember the first time that he heard I was going to chair the festival, and he sat me down and he said, "Now, young fella." And of course, he proceeded to tell me everything I needed to know about chairing the Frosty Festival. So it was a conversation that I very much valued at the time, and I know that he's been quite a pillar in the community. So certainly my deepest sympathies to his family and his many friends. Just a couple of items, moving on, a couple of updates from our friends at Engineering Services and I guess Public Works as well. Of course, I just want to remind residents, of course, the nice weather is coming up. We're starting to see some high teens. I don't know if we've actually eclipsed 20 degrees in temperature.
Yes, we did yesterday.
We did? Okay. Well, there's news to me. But
21.3.
In any case, the spring weather's coming, and of course, people are turning their attention to their lawns. And it is a little early to be thinking about watering lawns, but just we thought it time to remind residents that the City of Mount Pearl is always under a water conservation order. Of course, I just want to remind residents that in terms of watering lawns, that's permitted from 6 to 8 a.m. and 8 to 10 p.m. Those who are at even street numbers can do that on Wednesday and Saturday at those times, and those that are on odd street numbers can water their lawns on Wednesday and Sunday. Again, that's from 6 to 8 a.m. and 8 to 10 p.m. Of course, new lawns are exempt from this for 60 days. But we just asked residents to keep that in mind in terms of conserving water because, as we've said many times in the Chamber, water ain't free, despite the fact that there's a misconception out there. So just keep that in mind.
Question, Your Worship, if I could.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Ledwell, any reports from Bay Bulls in terms of water levels? I've noticed myself now that many of the ponds I know out in Cupid's area where we frequent many weekends, I'd say the pond is probably down a good 18 inches, 18, 20 inches. I mean, it's noticeably low. So I'm just wondering, given your commentary on the conservation, if we got any information on water levels. Councillor Aker, can you speak to that?
I can only add, Your Worship, and for the benefit of Council, we have a Regional Water Committee meeting on the 24th of May, and I know Terry Nee, who's the manager out to the facility, Big Bulls, Big Pond, will give us an update at that
Yeah, we
time.
usually
So-
get them quite frequently throughout the summer.
So, it's very well taken, because we've had very little runoff this spring, very little rain this spring. So next council meeting, we'll be able to give you an update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, indeed. We do need to sort of keep that in mind. We've been fortunate enough to have a fairly dry spring. Hopefully, we all want to see the nice weather continue, but certainly we want to keep monitoring those water levels and encourage residents to conserve water at all times. One other point, I just want to bring up the annual water main flushing program. I just want to remind residents, as is posted on our website, that residents of 2nd Street, 1st Street, St. Andrews Avenue, Teesdale Street, Edinburgh Drive, St. David's Avenue, Sunrise Avenue, and Glendale Avenue. We're going to be starting the water main flushing program next week on the 21st, just after the holiday weekend. There are some residents, of course, starting in that area who may start to see some lower water pressure, perhaps some discoloration or some cloudiness in their water. Just want to advise people that that's, of course, going to be normal as we move through that procedure. That'll be corrected, I guess, those issues as soon as possible. So just want to ask for the public's patience and their understanding as we move through that process. And of course, once we complete those streets with the water main flushing, we'll be moving on to the rest of the city. So just want to remind residents of that. Two more very quick items, Your Worship. I just want to make mention of the Regional Economic Development Board for the Northeast Avalon. The organization, of course, hosted their annual general meeting this afternoon at the Capitol Hotel. I'm very pleased to represent Council and the City on that particular board. Certainly going through a time of transition, if you will. I know that they met with Council and staff yesterday evening before the AGM, and certainly we had a good discussion. And it's going to be interesting to see how they find their niche in terms of what role they're going to play going forward in the region. But certainly a good annual general meeting today, and I was very pleased to attend on behalf of the city. One last item, I just want to extend best wishes to the Mount Pearl Lions Club. On May 6th, they celebrated the 57th annual charter of the Mount Pearl Lions Club. As we know, the Lions Club has become a real institution in the city, whether it be with the Frosty Festival, whether it be through the Waterford River cleanup, or any number of other community initiatives. They're always there to do what they can for those in need. So congratulations to the Lions Club, and certainly best wishes for the year ahead.
Amen. Thank you for that. Thank you very much, Council. One other, two little items that I'm going to bring up. Just a question. When are we painting lines? Mr. Randall, when are we painting?
The contractor has started some temporary line marking. I'm not sure if it's today, but they're getting their stencils ready.
Can we make going up Commonwealth a priority?
Yes, we can.
Right, like,
We will
can
be
we get the first gallon of paint on that sucker?
temporary line marking should start later this week, weather pending,
Okay,
and then permanent lines we expect next week.
okay, that's great. I just think that has become such a dangerous intersection because of the lack of lines. Yeah, fast we can do it today. Council, just to give you also a quick piece of information, most of you are aware, obviously, that the Urban Municipalities Committee regular meeting is going to be held on the 24th, 25th in Grand Falls, Windsor. But there's going to be a meeting just in advance of that on the morning of the 24th, and that's going to involve the 7 mayors and either our CAOs or financial officers. And I understand Jason is going to be with us. The CAO will be out of town. So Jason Silver is going to be joining me for that meeting, and that's among the 7 mayors, which, as you know, we're going to be developing a strategy to deal with the change in the MOG formula, the Capital Works program that we've received, now that we've lost our MOGs, et cetera, through the budget. All of it's being done strategically, and it's being coordinated through municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. And I just wanted Council to know that meeting is going to take place on Friday. Now it's scheduled for the moment to take place on Friday, the 24th of May. Okay? Just pass that on to everybody. And I will join with all of Council and just let you know, I'm not sure if Council saw it or not, but we did send out a news release on the passing of Judge Seabright earlier today, expressing the entire city's condolences. It is our intention as well, recognizing the tremendous citizen that he was, that on the day of the funeral, which will be Friday, that all city flags will fly at half-mast that day. Okay? And I'm assuming that most, if not all of us, will be in attendance at the funeral. One day. We checked out the protocols for this, and that's how we're doing it, Joe. I just want to pass that on under new business. There being nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by the very disappointed Toronto Maple Leaf fan, Councillor Tessier, the only Toronto Maple Leaf fan left in the world, apparently, after last night. You mean, I think the word choke does apply. We stand adjourned. Let the fight begin. We are adjourned.